After everything that has happened, and it's not even December yet, we are still in Trump's first year. Nick Fuentes made a very strong statement that I think everybody needs to hear. Nick Fuentes has said that MAGA is done. And I got to say this. I think Donald Trump, how do I want to put this? Oh my God. For those who supported Donald Trump, looking back on it, you probably should have had someone else. Now, I didn't support Donald Trump, but for those who did, look back on it and think about it if you think it was a good idea for Donald Trump to have another term. Because here's the problem. Donald Trump's not doing well. His polling numbers are, his approval is down. Part of that is because of the Epstein case. Donald Trump is ducking from reporters right now. Right before I went live, I saw that. Donald Trump is ducking from reporters because he doesn't want to answer any questions about Epstein. And Donald Trump was considered to be the leader of that MAGA movement. Nick Fuentes is someone who supported and advocated for Donald Trump. And something is happening in the Republican Party where some people are going towards Nick Fuentes' side and others are on more of like the Ben Shapiro side. But the numbers don't lie. The numbers are showing me right now. I looked on Social Blade. Ben Shapiro is bleeding subscribers. So people are asking this question: what is the future of the Republican Party? Because according to Nick Fuentes, he said MAGA is done. Let's go ahead and get into it, ladies and gents.
Is really crushing after 10 years is the message. And it's like Trump is getting old. His movement is getting old. America's getting old. And it feels like as Trump loses energy, as he has been defeated in a way, it feels like the movement is being defeated. The movement that he built is just, it's out of ideas. It's out of steam. We tried it. We thought we could do it. We can't. We gave it one last try, one last push. Make America great again. Let's do it. Never mind. Everyone go home. We actually do need the Indians. We lost. We were wrong. The elites were right. We're worthless. We need Chinese money. We need Indian programmers. That's the sense of dread. And this is why I said a year ago, it really is about the vibes. I said this a year ago. Trump is old. He's tired. He's not funny. He's low energy. He's monotonous. I said, and his movement is dead. Like his movement is not dynamic. His movement has been captured. Look at who's at Mar-a-Lago. It's all grifters. When Trump started, it was all true believers. When Trump started, it was like him and like a dozen people with a dream. And they were bootstrapping it. They were just doing these rallies, flying by the seat of their pants. And they're like, can we win? I don't know. We're going to try. And all the careerists and all of the parasite political class, they hated Trump. Now they're all in Mar-a-Lago. Now Mar-a-Lago is just the king's court. And it's all ass kissers and brown nosers and grifters and shills and the worst people imaginable. His endorsements have become a business. Access to him, photos with him have become a business. Like all of the shills from 15 are now on the inside. All the people that hated MAGA are now the biggest MAGA supporters. Trump has been fully assimilated. He has fully been compromised by the GOP.
Here's the thing. Because we've been talking about this for quite some time, right? That Donald Trump is a billionaire. Like look at the people that he hangs with. Miriam Adelson. He didn't just meet Miriam Adelson during this, this second time around, the second election for him. All these people run in the same circles. All of them. And at the end of the day, he's going to look out for his rich buddies in big business. Problem is that when you run on a message of populism, when you run on a message of we're going to fix the economy, which is what he said, this was like his thing. We're going to fix all these things that Biden messed up. Also, when it comes to Gaza, right? He was going to end that. There's no real ceasefire in Gaza. Israel's still killing Palestinians. So there were people who voted for Donald Trump that believed that. Now, I never believed that, but some people did. And that includes the Arab Americans, some of the Arab Americans in Michigan. When Donald Trump came to visit them and he said, I'm going to end it, that's why some of them voted for him instead of voting for Kamala or instead of voting for Jill Stein or Cornel West. Trump has fallen so hard. And also, people are looking at the economy. People are looking at the economy and they're like, wait a minute. Trump says that the prices are not increasing, but they are. And they are. I'm the one that does the grocery shopping. I know they're increasing. And people aren't being fooled by this. People knew they had economic issues under the Biden administration. Trump said he was going to fix that. People are like, the prices are still continuing to increase. One of the most important things a lot of people care about is the economy. They care about their pocketbook or their wallet. And then you got this whole Israel thing, which he didn't have to deal with this among his own base during his first term. But this time around, after, Gaza, after genocide, things are a little bit different. Because you see, some of the podcasters that supported him and advocated for him have turned when it comes to Israel. Podcasters with big platforms like Tucker Carlson, like Candace Owens, like they have a big platform and they are not willing to put up with it. They turned on that. That's also a problem for Trump. Then, of course, you have Nick Fuentes, who also does not support Israel. So this time around, Trump is dealing with something that he didn't have to deal with during his first term. I never would have imagined that Republicans would have been turning away from Israel. I never would have thought I'd see it ever. So is Nick Fuentes correct that MAGA is dead? Let's continue.
And there's nothing risky, nothing edgy. There's no entrepreneurial spirit. Look what happened to Elon Musk. Elon Musk came in. He was maybe the last push because he's a little younger and he bought Twitter and, he's the rocket man and everything like that. Elon came in with Doge. He got chewed up and spit out in 3 months. Elon was a little bit of energy. He was kind of like a little shock therapy for MAGA. And he lasted 3 months. He said, we're going to come in and we're going to bring in all these young guys and we're just going to move fast and break things. We could just do things. Remember, we could just do things. We're going to cut $1 trillion from the deficit. He got chewed up and spit out in 3 months. And now look at where we are. Nothing that has been promised has come to fruition. Can we end the wars? No. Trump wants to go back to Afghanistan. We're bombing Iran. We're building a base in Gaza. Mass deportations, Trump says, not so fast. We actually need all the people. We need the illegal farm workers. We need the illegal hospitality workers. We need the illegal construction workers. We're going to shut down H-1Bs, foreign students. Not so fast. We need all those Asians to fund our universities and do all the jobs that Americans are too retarded to do. Cut the deficit, forget about it. Epstein files, they don't exist. Can't afford a home? Well, get lost. Here we are a year in, your golden age. And it was rotten from the start because the donors got involved. And you have to understand that these things go hand in hand. When Trump started, he was not surrounded by the money. When Trump started, he funded his primary campaign with like $70 million. And it was just him and a small staff, and he was on Twitter, and that was it. And that's why it was energetic. That's why it was daring and risk-taking and exciting. And what happened really right after he won the election the first time in 17 and 18 is that all of the interests surrounded him, the money, the shills, the personnel, the bureaucrats.
But Donald Trump was still taking money from the Israeli lobby during his first term. Donald Trump was always still surrounded by rich people. He's a freaking billionaire. So he was always still surrounded, by those people. But I think what Nick is saying here is that in so many ways, I guess it wasn't as obvious, and he did fund a lot of things like for his first campaign. But those relationships, as we have seen with these Epstein emails, he always had these relationships with big, powerful people. And the reality is this, folks. What is going to happen here? In 10 years, we have watched the Republican Party change twice. Everybody realize this? When Donald Trump won in 2016, this whole Make America Great Again, his call out or focus on the workers and all that type of stuff, at least when he was running, there was this shift. A lot of these Republican politicians that said they would not support Donald Trump when he was running for president the first time, they all caved in. That includes Lindsey Graham, who just moves however the wind blows. Ted Cruz was one of them as well. They all caved in and moved right along to accept Donald Trump and to work with Donald Trump. Remember that. So that was a change that happened in the Republican Party. Donald Trump came in and he started to change the Republican Party. Now we're seeing another shift. We are seeing a segment of the Republican Party move away from Israel, move away from the constant wars. And in those two areas, they will have agreements with some on the left. And that's a problem. That's a problem. If you're AIPAC, if you're Kufi, that's a problem. If you're Miriam Adelson. So now we're seeing another shift. Because here's what I think, guys, because I'm telling you, if you look on Social Blade, you will see Ben Shapiro is bleeding subscribers. This next wave that's coming through, it seems like it's people who are seriously focused on America first, instead of we got to protect Israel. And yes, we have to have these wars because we have to keep America safe. It seems like these are people who really do want to focus on America first and not everybody else and not the wars. And I guess you could put Marjorie Taylor Greene in that camp too. What I'm saying is that could possibly be the future of the Republican Party. That this new change that's coming through. 10 years, we've seen two changes. What is the change that we've seen with the Democratic Party? Because the squad came into the Democratic Party, but Democrat leadership would not allow them to change that party. That's why they got rid of Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. The less squad members they have, the more the leadership has an upper hand. So this is always something to think about. Why is it that in the Republican Party, they're able to have two changes within 10 years, and the Democratic Party is still boggled down by the same old guard, the Chuck Schumers? Think about that. Let's continue on.
And the second that happened, they poisoned the well. And suddenly it became cautious and conventional and boring and safe. And suddenly it became about everyone getting a handout. Suddenly it became about patronage. Everybody getting their back scratched. Everybody getting taken care of under the table. Israel lobby, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, the corporate tax cuts, moving the embassy. It became about everything other than the people. These things go hand in hand. And this is what I said last year. Like all of these ideas that we talk about on the show, about personnel, about the Israel lobby, about the Trump campaign, about why things aren't happening quickly or at all these things are deeply related. If the Heritage Foundation is controlled by Israel lobbyists, if the Republican Party is controlled by the Israel lobby and the interests, if they're policing the young people in the speech, if they're working for the donors and the rich, then you're never going to get the good policy. You're never going to get your American revival. They're fucking killing our country.
Yes, Angie, Nancy Pelosi is right, is out. You're correct about that. That is a start. That is a start, right? Now he's getting into the money. And here's the big thing that I like to complain about a lot is the corporate money, the big money that is involved in both of these parties, right? So that is why we don't get a lot of these policies that many of us would like to have, whether it's universal health care, whether it's paid sick leave. It's so funny. Like people in Europe, they're like still shocked if you tell them we don't have paid sick leave, or you tell them we don't have health care for everyone in this country. They're like, what? Our neighbor to the north, Canada, they have it. So as long as the big money is there, and that's a big part of the problem. So all of these donors that are donating to these politicians, that's who the politicians really work for. Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, AIPAC, Kufi. Don't forget Kufi is also Israeli lobby too. A lot of the evangelical Christians will take money from Kufi. There's also J Street. That's like the liberal version of AIPAC. Like there's so many. You have lobby interest groups writing legislation in Congress. That is insane and should have never been allowed. Never been allowed. But the money is controlling all of it. Big money.
Every time the president of the United States says we have to take care of the universities before the young people, we have to take care of Hyundai and the South Koreans before we train up our own workforce, they're killing our country. They're murdering our country in order to satisfy all the special interests and give the political kickbacks. We're literally murdering our country. And the whole idea behind Trumpism is that we could transcend the petty politics, the wheeling and dealing, the quid pro quo, the money power. The idea was if we could transcend that, if we could have the people elect one leader, and if he wasn't beholden to the interests, he could get in, hire the right people, and just fix it.
I continue to say that, I mean, if I had it my way, every political campaign would be a grassroots campaign. No lobby interest groups, no AIPAC, no Blue Cross Blue Shield, none of that. And for people who will push back and say you can't win with a grassroots campaign, that's a bold-faced lie. Like we have politicians in Congress right now that have won running a grassroots campaign. But if it were me and I was able to make that decision, oh, no. Another thing, Citizens United. Citizens United, which now has this clause that says that corporations are people. That also needs to end. There was a push for this a couple years ago, I feel like, to end Citizens United. Then it kind of just went by the wayside. That needs to come back. We need a movement around that as well.
And everybody'd be unhappy. The media'd be pissed. Everybody'd be pissed. There'd be pain and economic pain and maybe chaos. But with a firm hand and with consistency and with leadership that we could actually revive the country. We would have to break the back of all these self-perpetuating systems that have gotten us to this point. That was the whole idea. That's what made it interesting and exciting and worth supporting. And the second that it backslid into everything that came before, that's when I jumped off. That's when I said, I'm out. But all the idiots stuck around because, you know, a lot of them, they just caught on way too late. A lot of people got red-pilled in like 2021. A lot of the people that voted for Trump in 24, they became conservative after the pandemic. They weren't there for the first time. And so their support for Trump is just like a generic conservatism. It's like a generic reaction to the excesses of the left. And so they weren't there for that magical campaign. They weren't there for that populist moment. And that's why they were sold a bunch of crap by propagandists on Twitter who were telling them it's going to be a never-ending Creed concert. We're going to be drinking Code Red Mountain Dew and playing Xbox. And
when you are with me, I'm free. You guys remember Creed? With arms wide open.
It's going to be the golden age, Vivek Ramaswamy and Tulsi Gabbard are going to put America first or whatever. Like they were just not prepared for that. And now here we are. I was right. I told you so. This is not MAGA. There is nothing MAGA about any of this. This is not America first. None of this is putting Americans first. Every promise has been broken. There are no real victories. Trump has not delivered. It has been one disappointment after another, and that is because of corruption.
I never thought I would see Trump supporters say this, but yes, it's true. And I feel like I've been screaming my head off all year saying he's lying to you guys. Donald Trump is fooling people. The economy is not great. The numbers show that. It's not just about GDP. It's about those damn prices in the grocery store. It's not just about the stock market. It's also about your wallet, your pocket. And to hear Nick Fuentes say that that's a good thing. That's a good thing because it needs to be someone on that side to say it and wake people up and shake people and say, wake the hell up. Donald Trump played you. And it's okay to admit you've been played. I was played in 2008. His name was Barack Obama. And I believed all of that jazz. When Barack Obama was running, you got to understand, like, that was one of the most exciting times for me in this country. When Barack Obama was running and he was talking about universal health care too. People forget. He was running on a populist message. He was talking about everybody needs to have health care. He was talking about we got to end the wars in the Middle East. I don't know if everyone remembers this, but he was talking about that. He said, it's time for a change. Yes, we can. And I fell for all of that. And then he ended up just being like everybody else that came before him. Now, obviously, yeah, he had hurdles that he had to deal with that some of them didn't have to deal with. But the way Barack Obama just sat there those first 2 years, when he could have passed some of those things that he ran on or pushed some of those things that he ran on, it was just baffling to me. To see his response to Ferguson was baffling to me. To see his visit to Flint, Michigan, and pretending to drink the water and tell the people the water's not dirty, it was baffling to me. And I said to myself, who the hell is this guy? So we all been there. And it's okay to admit it happened to you. What I sincerely hope this does is I hope it wakes more people up to just how corrupt the uniparty is. The uniparty, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, all that big money that comes in. I mean, these representatives represent corporations. They don't represent us. Those days are gone. And I think we do need more we need more parties. We need more third parties. We should have as many parties as the UK does. They're like our stepsister. So I don't know. And this makes me wonder about 2028, but it's just like I see people moving and shifting. And I just sincerely hope come 2028 that people don't fall back to sleep again.
That is because the Trump regime, just like every other regime, has been corrupted by money. That's the bottom line. You have been disappointed. You fell for it again. You believed them when they made a promise, which they never intended to keep. They said things to you to get your vote, knowing full well that once they got it, they were going to work for the donors. That's who pays for the cabinet appointments and the ambassadorships. That's who captures the bureaucracy. And that is why the system is sclerotic. That is why the system is slow and broken and unanswerable to the people and not even thinking about the people. And you're almost better off with Biden than with this. This is just like criminal stuff.
Uh-oh. And that is the statement there that's driving some people crazy. They're like, did he just say we were better off with Biden than with Donald Trump? Again, this is someone, Nick Fuentes, who supported, Donald Trump. I continue to tell you guys, you can vote for a politician, but you can't put your faith in a politician. You can't make them your hero, because this is where the disappointment comes in. And I did that. I did that in the past. I did that with Barack Obama. I did that with Bernie Sanders. I was so disappointed when Bernie, they cheated Bernie in 2016 at the Democratic National Convention. I was so disappointed how they just gave states that Bernie won to Hillary Clinton. And I wanted Bernie to fight back. And I'm wondering some things. Like I look back on things and I just feel like even when we look at Bernie 2016 and 2020, he was, I think, a bigger name at that point from what I remember, right? Like his crowd started to get larger and all that type of stuff. But the 2016 campaign, I think, was for the in the mud, raw dog people, like the people who were like, yeah, rocking with him before it was cool and popular to do so. Then come 2020, which I feel that campaign was a little bit more commercialized, and a little bit more like, it was bigger, it was out there, but it almost makes you wonder, is it necessarily a good thing for someone to try again? Joe Biden, for example, ran for president 3 times. Third time's the charm, I guess. We can talk about things that happened behind the scenes, how Barack Obama told people to drop out of the race so his good friend Joe could get in there. Was that a good thing? Joe Biden was stumbling across the debate stage, stumbling through his words during the Democratic primary debates. Maybe he should not have run in a third time. These are just things to think about. I think a lot of us can tell that Donald Trump is not the same as he was when he was president in 2016. You can tell when he's talking, you can tell through his motions, he's gotten older, etc. But during a time where there was a genocide happening, the economy was in the pits, a lot of people really believed that Donald Trump was going to fix it and get things on track. And here we are, and we seeing money go out the door to Argentina. Save Argentina, don't save us though. More and more money going to Israel. Everybody but us. And I'm so glad more people are waking up.
And I'm not saying it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't care. But all Trump seems to have done, he's just as bad as the Democrats. The only difference is Trump has given people a false sense of victory. Trump has lulled people into complacency. Yep. Everybody thought the people triumphed when Trump won. He's different. He's talking like the rest of us. That's what is particularly sinister about the Trump movement, is the way that it functions as a Trojan horse.
And now he's trying to, Donald Trump is trying to do this type of fake populism where he's passing, policies to make you think that he's doing something for the working class people, like that 50-year mortgage plan of his. And I saw that and I was like, hold up, let's do some math, people. For a lot of people who went through the home buying process, like myself, I'm like, let's do some math and let me show you what this actually looks like and how much you're actually going to end up paying in the long run. Just throwing things out there, but you can give all this money to Argentina. It's blatant. People see it. People have social media. I can tell you back during the day, like, especially during Obama days, I wasn't as active on social media. So I didn't see a lot of this stuff. People are paying attention more now. So, it's wild, fam. It's absolutely wild. People are tired of Benjamin Netanyahu. People are tired of Israel's putting their hand out all the damn time, killing children. People are sick and tired of it. And I got to say this, when we talk about what could happen in the future, the anti-war message is popular. The anti-war message is very popular. Americans, most Americans that I meet don't want war. So these whole days of like the neocon, like Dick Cheney's, and this is why Nikki Haley didn't do well, that message doesn't resonate with people anymore. It also doesn't resonate with people, a lot of people now in the Republican Party.
Biden was worse. Kamala would have been worse. But at least with Kamala, nobody would be under any illusions. Would Kamala be better? No, she would have been far worse. The economy would be worse. Immigration would be worse. It all would be worse. But here's what matters, and here's the difference. Nobody would be under any illusions about what it is. That it's illegitimate. The elections are fake. The government's corrupt. She's not really in charge. The system hates us. There'd be no love lost there. And everybody would be acutely aware of the problem. You'd have righteous indignation. You'd have anger. There'd be a revolutionary fervor. But instead, with Trump, you get the pressure release valve. And no matter what he says or what he does, 50% of his audience, he has this diehard base of supporters. They'll support it no matter what. If he bombs Iran, they'll support it. If he brings in 500,000 Chinese students, they'll say he doesn't really mean it. If he fails to deport people, they'll say, well, who cares? The border's secure, so what? That's the problem. And so this is when you start to begin to think politically and start to think about what our real endgame is. My endgame is not to elect Republicans and be marginally better than the Democrats. No, my endgame is I do want an energetic president. I want an energetic, forward-thinking, progressive, disruptive, populist executive branch that is going to fucking break the back of the power in the country and put Americans first. No.
That part there was surprising to me when he said the word progressive. I actually saw someone put this in the chat. Let me see if I can go ahead and bring this up here. Plan It Hollywood. Kyle Kalinske always says that he thinks that Nick Fuentes is really a Democrat pretending to be a right-winger to peel away the MAGA folks. I think he's right. Well, this is interesting. This is the first time I heard Nick Fuentes say progressive. So I don't know if everybody else picked up on that. But did you hear that? Okay.
No more kickbacks, no more deals, no more corruption, no more special interests, no more super PACs. We literally need a real leader that is actually popular and in control with agency, someone smart to get in, fire everybody, bring in his own people, and literally make the trains run on time. Literally build the new cities, raise the skyscrapers from the ground, build the factories, put us on a war footing, make the fucking country great again. That's all I'm interested in. If it's not that, I don't want it. So don't tell me the next best thing is this. The next best thing is we're going to elect Trump and he's going to make another joke about how you say Buttigieg's name. We're going to elect Trump and, hey, man, it's better than the Democrats. I don't care. They're murdering our country. On what timeline? Are we going to murder the country in 10 years or 5 years? You're still murdering the country. Trump promised to be that leader. He's not. It's time to move on.
Woo! So here's the thing, and I think more and more people are feeling that way, right? Like, because I've seen some of the comments on social media, and I just think that's really interesting. One thing that I wanted to add here, the reason why you don't see them really focusing on the factories is because a lot of these jobs are being automated. That's another thing. Another thing we really do need to push back on is AI. Now, AI is a tool, and it can be used in a good way or a bad way, but replacing people's jobs is not a good thing. And I think that that's something we cannot get take our eye off the ball with that. This is another thing with the Elon Musk and the Peter Thiel and all of them. When they got together with Donald Trump, I was like, you guys, like, you know who these guys are? Do you know what they want to do, what they want to accomplish? Sam Altman, when Donald Trump had the interview before he won, when he had the interview with the All In podcast with David Sachs, and Bill Ackman was a part of that at one point too, the tech bros in Silicon Valley. He was guaranteeing them that he was going to give them what they wanted. And one of the things that they wanted was, of course, ways to increase productivity in the tech sector. Whether that means to hire people who already have the experience or are willing to work longer hours for less pay, or to replace people with AI. So these are other things that we got to point out as well. The billionaire class, they don't care. They don't care if you lose your job. They're fine. They own shit. Most Americans don't. Most young people can't afford to buy a home. They can't come up with a down payment to get a home. You got private equity buying up all these single family homes, which I've been warning people about for years. They flip the homes, they increase the price, and that's the reason why a lot of people can't get the down payment to buy that home. You got to tell me why I'm seeing homes that are 50, 60 years old, not renovated. I've seen this too, not renovated, particularly here in Massachusetts, and they're selling these homes for $700,000. Somebody explain that to me. You have private equity and investors buying homes right here in the United States, sight unseen, just throwing money at it. And all these young people continue living in these tiny shoebox apartments. That's not the American dream. That's not the dream I was told about. That's a nightmare. Going a little bit more here.
Now, you can vote Republican. I don't care. But if you are not dedicating yourself as a young person to getting yourself ready for that truly revolutionary moment, then you're just not engaging in politics. That's why I tell people, get ready. Get ready for the moment when that revolutionary leader appears and says, we need factory workers. We need workshops. Someone needs to make the missiles. Someone needs to make the tanks, the cars. Someone needs to make the steel that will build the buildings. That's why I tell people, go to college, get skills, get jobs, be a human Swiss Army knife. Be a spy, be a soldier. Because when that revolutionary government comes to power, we want to go to DC and rule.
So someone already said it in the chat. They said that if Nick Fuentes didn't have the position he had on race, he would be considered a lefty. Yeah. The reason why I wanted to talk about this tonight is because I want you to hear what Ben Shapiro said, and I want you to compare.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up. But the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities.
So now I want to prove a point. Because see, they went from Ben Shapiro and his peeps. They went from, if you're a legal immigrant, we want you out of the country, to now, if you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, you need to leave. Ben Shapiro is wealthy. The young kids today, I worked in the university for over 10 years. I advised college students, and I'm here to tell you, before I left Boston University, I started to see the salaries go down before I left, what these kids were being offered. So the pay has not adjusted for inflation. Prices continue to increase. Healthcare premiums increase every year. But according to Ben Shapiro, if you can't afford it, then you just need to leave. Is anyone going to tell Ben Shapiro it costs money to leave? And two, think about who he's telling to leave. He's not telling the billionaires to leave, the people who are exploiting labor. He's telling the people who can't afford it to get out. We don't want you poors around here. Gets to stepping. I think the class dynamic, we're seeing changes with that, particularly also in the Republican Party. Here's another one here I want to show you. Nick Fuentes said this to Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh was going on and on about you have to reject doomerism. I have 6 kids. The idea that the American dream is dead forever and there is no way to fix anything. I'm supposed to just accept that and give up on my children's future is repulsive to me. Okay, first of all, you're rich. Nick Fuentes responded and said, you are paid millions of dollars by the Israel lobby to create insipid culture war slop. Meanwhile, your boss tells Americans that they aren't entitled to a job or to live in the city they were born in. Of course, you think the system can still be salvaged. You are owned by it. See, it's a class issue. And then we go to the Tucker Carlson part. I want you to hear what Tucker Carlson said here about the Israel piece.
Mark Levin is already there. And we know that because Mark Levin has repeatedly, and he's not the only one, but he's the most blunt, has repeatedly called for just murdering civilians, children in Gaza because they're Amalek or whatever. They're stained by blood guilt. Prime Minister of Israel said exactly the same thing. They are guilty by virtue of how they were born. So that, by definition, includes women and children. So Mark Levin is not clever enough to keep the implications of these views to himself, and he said them repeatedly on television, just to give you a sense about how Mark Levin feels about human life and the human soul. Watch this.
And I'm supposed to, what? Shed crocodile tears for what's going to happen to these people? I'm not. Maybe I'm the only one who will voice it, but I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Israel has every right to throw every damn thing it has at barbarians. And if there are innocent people, quote unquote, civilians who are killed, then maybe they ought to organize to take out the government they elected. Tapper and the others are saying there's 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. They're not all terrorists. They don't all believe in Hamas. They really have no choice. Let me ask you a question. Is that how we treated the German people when we were fighting the Third Reich? Well, they're not all Nazis. I mean, you got to fight to win and survive. You can't sit there and figure all that stuff out. Oh, but don't hurt the civilians. Look, we have to defend ourselves. The Israelis have to defend ourselves. The free world has to defend itself. And if there's collateral damage, well, that's too bad.
25 years.
The point is, we were supposed to learn from the past. We were supposed to learn from those mistakes that no, you don't make collateral damage with civilians. We can also point towards Vietnam. We were supposed to learn from the war in Vietnam. Notice how he called them barbarians. This Israel issue is also a big divider now in the Republican Party, which I never thought I would have seen this ever. But here we are. Even Tucker Carlson is like, what the hell? Doesn't agree with this. And what kills me are the people who call themselves Christians and say that they support this. Well, the Bible says that the Bible does not say that this land is promised to these Eastern Europeans. And we're going to do another segment about this, guys, where we get into, because everybody keeps pointing back to the rapture. We're going to do another breakdown on the show, and we're going to get into that rapture part. Because I told you guys before, I really do believe this is the biggest psyop that has gone around the world.
Years ago in this country, people didn't talk that way. They didn't. It was a different landscape, different expectations. The idea of blood guilt, because that's what he's describing there. You should be killed by virtue of who your parents are, who your grandparents were, by virtue of how you were born. You should be killed. You don't have a right to live. You're guilty because you were born, and which of course leads to collective punishment and genocide. That's the basis of genocide right there, that attitude. That was considered totally unchristian and un-American because it is. And if someone said something like that on television, I mean, he'd be probably pulled off the air for that.
So there are changes that are happening. There are changes that are happening. And Tucker Carlson's right there to call that out. People like Mark Levin is utterly, utterly sick, disgusting people. It is so sad. And I sit here and ask myself these questions is like, for people like him, for people like, I forget the other, Batya, for people like them to say, well, Black people, you need to be supporting Israel. No. This is sick. This is the final stage of colonialism. It's the Israel Project. This idea of these settlers from Brooklyn, New Jersey, to move to stolen land in Israel and to expand and conquer in the Middle East. It's sick, it's disgusting. And that's why they don't have any empathy for the Palestinians that are killed. And for all the people, and for a lot of them that are pushing the rhetoric about the rapture, and well, the Bible says this and da-da-da, they're not reading in between the lines. People don't ask, I don't know, just random questions like, who wrote the Bible? Who were the scholars that sat down and wrote the King James version of the Bible? Did they get all the books in the Bible? Did they get all the stories? Maybe they would have worded things in such a way to support a Zionist project. And I sincerely hope that more people start looking into that and start understanding that when I say people have been played, I think you've been played there too. Something's happening there in the Republican Party. And if I were to make a bet, considering that Ben Shapiro is losing followers, if I were to make a bet, I would say it's more likely than not that that party is going to end up moving in the direction of Nick Fuentes, not in the direction of Ben Shapiro anymore. I think the days of Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, Crier, Flyer, whatever the hell you want to call them, I think it's ran its course. I really do. I think the biggest mistake they probably ever made was when Ben Shapiro fired Candace Owens because of Israel. I think they just thought that wasn't going to impact them. I don't think they realized that that was actually going to make her grow even more. I don't think they expected that to happen. So those days are done, done. Mark Levin doesn't want to sit down and have this conversation with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson apparently reached out to him, according to Mark, doesn't want to have the conversation. Mark, go meet Tucker outside. Go meet him outside. Ben, since you going on all these damn podcasts, hopping over here, hopping over there, talking about you're mad that Tucker Carlson sat down and had this interview with Nick Fuentes, Ben, go meet Nick outside. Go settle that. If I see Ben Shapiro on one more damn show complaining about an interview that happened on someone else's podcast because he feels they broke rank, I'm going to scream. Gonna scream. But things are changing, ladies and gentlemen. Things are changing. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.